Greetings and welcome to the Truth to Power Show and the Ron March Show. And we are here live on this Wednesday at 6 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Ron March, I understand you have some powerful information for us tonight.
Yeah, well, I've been on the road taking care of some business, trying to talk to some of these heavyweight brothers out there. And I got slapped with some information that hit me so hard. I said, I got to get back to telling. He started laughing because, when I first met you, I guess, first of all, you heard me do a show on DJANGO, and you called me and asked me would I be interested in dealing with you and your program, which I did do. And we discovered in that process that most people that saw the show, a movie, a comedy, and or just another black movie, a black process. And I revealed the fact that the Universe Commercial Code, UCC, was the basis of the movie. You recall that?
Yes, correct? Yes.
Yeah. And most people that I brought that to their attention, they all went back and looked at it again and said, wow, how can I miss it? Well, I was with this good brother this weekend, and it came up. I don't know how it came up. And I explained to him what I just said to you. He said, well, brother, you kind of missed it yourself. Go into to who we are as Moors and our titles. There's 5 noble titles that belong to the Moorish nation. We got the El, Bey, Ali, and Al. 5 titles. And each one of those titles represent a nation or the specific nation that you're from. Now, I can't break all of them down, but I know the El and the Bey, one deals with land and the other deals with law. And then you got your burgundy feds and you got your black feds. So there's purpose for all of that. Back in the day, people knew who you were by your noble title of nobility. And they also knew how much knowledge or what the knowledge was that you were attached to. Well, I found out that the day, now, Beverly, you know that as you have been studying the Moorish nation, Moorish history, you have seldom seen a day on anybody's as a surname on anyone's name. Is that correct? Have you seen any days, D-E-Y?
Any day? You say D-E-Y?
Yes.
No, I see mostly Bey or Ali.
Or
L.
L.
L, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. That's my point. Okay.
Now, what was the 5th one, Ron? I missed the one.
Ali.
I got Ali, Day, Bey, L.
And then Al, A-L.
Oh, A-L. Okay. All right.
Yes. Yes. And those are the titles of nobility.
Mm-hmm.
Now, a little more history in that. When the European engulfed, and I'm looking at it, but let me go back to my formula. All Moors are black, but all blacks are not Moors. So if we can kind of picture that in our mind, we're talking about a huge black a ball or circle. And in that circle, you have honorable Moors. Now, they can only be identified by their deed. D-E-D. So there's 5 principles of all Moors that you have to abide by: love, peace, freedom, justice, and equality. Person you meet do not fall into those principles, then you know you got a situation. I won't call it a problem, because most people are not aware. However, this is important. Keep thinking about that picture of black with blacks in black in that picture. The Europeans, realizing that they were the minority their intent was to take the country, they needed to figure out how they could pull those blacks that were not Moors into another category. The true Moors, realizing that there were so many treacherous Moors out there, that they, in the meeting of 1774, they decided to exile all of those blackies that were not honorary, true Moors. Are you following me, Bill?
I got you. I'm following you.
All right. So now they took, and we're only talking about black at this time. So they set up a program in order to lure all of those black Moors that were out there to create a nation that they could use subjects of the United States. Because the United States did not have a subject. Recall, they were only given a 10 square mile, and there was nobody to do the work that they needed done. And back in those days, labor was your biggest commodity, if you will. You needed labor, just like when the auto industry broke, they needed people to work in the auto industry. Some of those plants had upward of 60 and 70,000 people in those plants, get those automobiles out. Then they worked it down through modern machinery, and they got them down to a lower rate. But back in the day, there was no machinery that could do the labor that they wanted done. The tractors were not good enough. The plows, most of the slaves would break the plows, but they didn't want to do the work anyway. So they had to come up with a program in order to keep accumulate those Moors that were exiled from the traditional Moorish nation. So they got their attention through Abraham Lincoln. Lincoln was part of the conspiracy to get those Moors that did not have a country, they did not have a nationality, of the original Moors took the nationality away from them, and they didn't have jobs. They were just out there. So what they did, first thing they did, they gave them a label. That label went from Negro, colored, black, nigger, all of the labels that we have today. They were used and created back in the late 50s, early 60s, in order to identify those blacks for the European now, those that were out there that did not have a nation, did not have a flag, did not have a culture, they were just out there. Well, think about it, put yourself in that predicament. You didn't really know what was going on. You just went where there was work, weekends, you party, drank that fire water, all the things that you do today, bowling, can't stand it, bowling and cabaret, all of that madness that took you away from the true self and created this thing that we know today as nigger, or a nigger, a Negro, all of them. Now, back in the nation of the Moors, the European knew that if that nation was not destroyed, they would eventually educate all of the masses and pull them back into the fold and put the European off of the continent where he should have been put off, or never should have been here in the beginning. This is why we do not have land, nationality, a flag, because of the predicament that was created from 1776 all the way up to 1859, and I'm using years that I'm aware of, and they may be longer or they may be shorter. But when George Washington and company were given the 13 colonies that came from the brutish Moors, those were blacks also, brutish Moors, their intent when they received that document was to figure out how they could take over and create what you see today. And they started started right from the beginning. That's where that story about George Washington chopping down the cherry tree. That's all important. But the cherry tree was the real Moorish flag. And the real Moorish flag, out of pure love, go back to the principles: love, peace, freedom, equality. Help those Europeans, quote unquote, mulatto, quote unquote, enemy of the state. Help them found themselves in that so-called United States. That's why the Moors were so involved in creating those 4 contracts, which was, number one, I gave it to you before, Bear. Number one was the Declaration of Independence. Then we went to the Articles of Association. Then we went to Articles of man, I can't think fast, but my mouth is running and I can't catch up with it. Articles of Association, Articles of
Confederation.
Confederation, that's the third one. And then there was the Constitution of the United States. Those 4 constitutions what I'm dealing with. So, keep Django in mind. That's where we're going with this.
Okay.
So, the Europeans that were involved in the United States were manipulating their new nation, if you will, let's call it that, because they were given that through the Constitution. We all think that the Constitution of 1871 was a shadow conspiracy, but what we forgot was we gave it to them in the original organic Constitution. And you know where it is. In Article 1, Paragraph 8, Article 1, Section 8, Paragraph 17, tells you right there that we, the Moors, gave them 10 square miles as a district, gave them a district of 10 square miles. Now, we out the troublemaker, because everything was black. Probably during that period of time, if we took any number of population, less than 10% were Europeans, probably 8%. But what was beginning to happen through miscegenation and the whole process of slavery, there was a new nation being created known as mulatto. And the mulattoes had, you would have X number of percentage of black and white. So as they began to build the United States, they had to build it on pure racism, white supremacy. And that's what we live in today. White supremacy. I don't care what you say, what you try to do, you're living under a government founded on white supremacy. So from the faces of white supremacy, they could weed in and weed out those desirables that they wanted or did not want. So if you were too dark as a European, but you had some black blood, they kick your butt out. But if you were white, and when you see a redneck peckerwood, you know he's pure white. But you got a lot of whiteys out there that lay in the sun and start tanning. Nobody asked that question. How do they tan? If they're Europeans, they're supposed to see a lily white redneck peckerwood. But bottom line is, a lot of them lay out the tan. A lot of them that tan, their skin peeled. So you know something's up. All right. So what happened was they began to build societies on the color of your skin. Now, property was a major problem during that time, because if you were not a full-blooded Moor, you were not allowed to own property. This is why you read some places and hear people talk about we're not supposed to spread our seed into other races, which they were talking about the Europeans, because you was creating that mulatto. And then the mulatto, you can't tell one from the other. If you got a black, you got to go into it, but you got a real black individual, and the baby's going to be predominantly black, and he's going to have a black color. But now, if you have a light-skinned male, I'm only talking about the male side, you had a male that was brown-skinned, that had sex. Now, you don't really know what color that baby's going to come out. light, blue eyes, dark hair. You don't really know. But I saw some down in Georgia that I know that daddy was a mulatto, and that little baby girl, he was riding that bicycle, he had that long, straight hair, so you know they probably will choose to send her to a white school, and as long as the daddy don't come and pick her up, how the school don't know that she's a black girl. Okay, now, keep in mind the tribes of nobility. Why? Because as they had these numbers, humongous numbers of, let me just call them runaways or Negroes, let's just call them what they are, niggas. And all these niggas out there that didn't belong to anything, as we are today. Belong to nothing. But what they did, they set up to separate so that they could conquer everything. They set up a little thing called the 5 civilized tribes. Now keep in mind that those Negroes that were out there during the early 1850s, 60s, 70s, they knew what tribes they came from. But they chose to drink liquor, fight, do all the stuff that was not permitted to them to do. They did not want to live by the principle. But they knew what nation of war they came from. So what the European did, he created this thing, and I'm calling it a thing, called an Indian. And when he created the Indian, he had to put them into categories. So to trick everybody, he reached and got the 5 civilized nations. And then he called it on paper 5 civilized tribes. Now, you got these niggas, I'm using that word loosely tonight, these niggas running around out there with nowhere to go. They begin to run into these particular corporations of tribes that were created by the Europeans. The Europeans set up rules and regulations for them to get into these tribes. They also had land that came in. They had to sign treaties and sign their land into these things. You got today, if you look up the 5 civilized tribes, for all of you out there that around the computer, put in there 5 civilized tribes, and you'll notice that they have a topic tribe, such as Cherokee. Under Cherokee, there may be 6, 8, 10 other sub-tribes, so that they could control. Now, the Moor, as we know it, was not in that group, but they were Moors because they came from Moors, but they came out of the wilderness and came into those things because they were trying to get a national, quote unquote, a flag, or they were trying to get a culture. And they were trying
these 5 civilized tribes, were these the mulattoes, or was it a mixture of the Moors?
Mixture of all. Blacks, white, light, L-I-T-H-T, mulattoes. You know, they all knew where they come from. I just talked to a brother today, and he looks like an Indian, and he was telling me that his mother's side, she got that long, his mama's about 80 years old. She got real long white hair. It's like an Indian. But he said her mama was white. Got her hanging on the wall, which is his grandmother. She was, well, not white. She was a mulatto. Got it? She had land. But the father's side, he was darker, and they didn't have money. They didn't have land on his father's side. Mama had all the land from her side, or the wealth from her side. And one of the biggest problems back in those days was setting up an estate for your dependents. And we done got away from the day, die today, and you on your own. You know, Malcolm used to say, if your mom and daddy was on welfare, the baby's going to be on welfare. But they can't grow out of it. It's a cultural thing. But our culture tells us, our true culture, we're supposed to live, to build an estate for our offspring. But a lot of us can't do it. Some of us can, don't get me wrong. But most of us cannot. And then there's another group that don't give a damn. They don't care if they can't. not, because they're working so hard to survive that they don't have time to set up anything for their own. Especially when you got 2 and 3 and 4 generations living in one house. So this type of thing that I'm just discussing so far is so ugly and shameful that we kind of turn our heads against it, which is a major problem, but we don't want to work to correct it. We'd rather act like it doesn't exist. I got a job, I got a car, I got a family. I'm not worried about anybody else. That comes. Now, we're still coming towards Jango. So, when the Europeans set up this new corporation known as United States Inc., which they had permission to do, they knew that they were going to take over. Their intent was to take over everything. So I told you there were 2 civil wars. Now, you can call it 2, or you can say the one that they talk about started at least 4 years prior to their deed. They love to use the date 1861 when it started. That's when they say that the Congress broke down and Benet died, was set up, and he walked out. Okay, that's what they say. But I have proof, and the proof is in the book that was written by or written of, not by, of Noble Drew Ali's grandfather, John Drew. It's called the Cherokee Confederation. And in that book, they discuss, you got to read it. They discuss all the things that I'm trying to put into your minds tonight, because they talk about full, like, for example, the regiment that John Drew was in control of, he was a colonel, was a full-blooded regiment of Cherokee. Now, we know that Cherokee was submitted in the book because it was written in hindsight, and they changed it because there was no such thing as Cherokee, Apache, and all that. Europeans made that up. They could not pronounce the names of these people, so what they did, they just made up. And then they couldn't make it up fast enough, so they just created this thing, a catch-all known as Indian. I got proof of that in the legal Barron dictionary. They talk about it. They explain it. Out of convenience, they use the word Indian. I say Indian, but Indian. And then they said they were writing so many treaties that they didn't have time and couldn't spell it, so they said Indian. That's how. Right. Now, I've learned through this type of gobbledygook that when they mention a treaty, the Europeans talk about the treaty. Isn't it ironic that the blacks never, anything you read about a black or an Indian tribe, never do they bring up the treaty, because they always lose when there's a treaty. I would think that the treaty was used as a race riot way back in the day. Why? So that they could steal through the treaty, they can circumvent it. They write the treaty and get you to sign it. They can circumvent it because they know that English language means this or says that, and it's not really what they do. So we're caught up in a hocus pocus trick bag because they had to learn the language of the Europeans, which the treaties were written in. And then we had to understand and knowing that the Europeans, and I hate to keep saying Europeans, because I'm telling you tonight that there were Moors out there that were way more outrageous and created atrocity against their own people because they saw a way to build a kingdom for themselves. You've got to understand that. The major problem with our demise, that is our niggerism, comes from black folks. White people don't do this stuff. We do it to ourselves. But we don't understand the dynamic of how we're living. They took hundreds of tribes of Moors and lumped them into one bag and called them niggers. Colored, black, Negro, Indian, Apache, Cherokee, all that kind of crap. You don't know who you really are. Then they came up with the word, and I don't want to get into this much more tonight, but I'll defend that stuff. Then they came up with this word, Moor, M-O-O-R. Why? So that they are saying that since the melting pot has been stirred so much over so long a period of time, none of you niggas know who you are, but we'll just call you Moors. I've learned, Ben, that everything that I've been talking in my life is a damn lie.
Everything.
Everything. And I'm saying it like that because the basis of all of my studies came from some type of statement, and the statement is wrong. For example, you and I have never seen the Constitution of the United States. You're going to say, yeah. I'm going to tell you you have not. Why do I say that? Because the Constitution of the United States was written, a contract was written by Moors who were Islamic, Arabic individuals. The original Constitution, when we were in power, is in our language, which is Arabic. Hello?
All right. So that one that's in the museum, that's the one, they translated it or they made it up?
The translation, you need to know someone that can, that's a good point. You need to know someone that can speak Arabic that you trust. And then go with them to see this treaty, and you bring out the American so-called treaty, and then you read and let them read article by article. And you'll see that it's different. Most people don't know that. What you just said, most people don't know that. And when you go to these online, what can I call it? I'll just say these things. Like the law library, there you go. Avalon is a big one that everybody uses. Okay. When you go there, they will have it in Arabic. And then at the bottom, or they translate it and give you Fred Johnson translated. Who the hell is Fred Johnson? How can I trust you?
Right.
So that's why I say everything I've learned, because my soul and heart is telling me things today that I said, good God, I had no idea it was like that. Once you get the real, now it begins to flip. Because what they did when they said Reconstruction, what they really meant was the word they used, altered. There's a word in that George Washington said to the Most High Sultan Muhammad Abdul, who was over the Arab nation, and he was George Washington was apologizing because he couldn't make his payment. Why did he have to make a payment? Because the Moors owned everything. And that letter was asking me for more time to make the payment. In that letter, and one day we're going to sit down, I'm going to do it in my classes, we're going to sit down and break that letter down, because if I ask you right now, Beverly, what? Give me a good definition of commerce. Can you give me a definition of commerce in one or two or three words? Commerce, word.
Is it buy, sell, trade?
Okay. What about finance?
Okay.
What about, you said trade. What about shipping? Mm-hmm. What about cargo, manifest? You can go on and on with little things like that, right?
Yeah.
Well, the best word that you can use is the root word, and that is civilization.
Civilization.
Yes. Yes. Civilization covers everything in commerce and everything on earth. Civilization. If I give you civilization, it's like the story in the Bible. Don't check them. But they say it. When they said, okay, we're going to give you a fish. The guy said, no, don't give me a fish. Teach me how to fish and I can feed myself. Teaching me to fish to feed myself is civilization. Giving me a fish and selling me a fish is commerce.
Okay.
Now, got to get a little deeper, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, the European is a genius on that type of manipulation. And when you read some of those letters that were written back in the day from Andrew Jackson and Frederick Douglass, all of that kind of stuff. They were speaking true English, but the words itself throw you off. For example, in that letter from George Washington to the black chief, he said, I thank you for giving us commerce. Okay. Good thing then you talk about a treaty that we would trade with you. But if you look at it as civilization, they come out of, as Malcolm said, they was eating raw meat swinging in the tree. So when we gave them commerce, is what we do today. We teach them and give them everything they got. Benjamin Banneker, Big Ben, Abdul Ali, who original name is Big Ben, or Benjamin Banneker, he taught them everything they know about government. They had no idea what government was. Once he taught them that information, then when they got up close to 1860s, talking about this so-called Reconstruction, they say they flipped the script. They made the black caveman and made the Europeans, or those in control, made them the geniuses. And they do that today. You have to look mighty close to find any European successful that ain't got a black man that's telling him what to do. They used to talk about, I think it was Nixon. All the crap that Nixon did. Nixon had a chauffeur that had a PhD. And in that chauffeur told Nixon everything he needed to do to stay on top. Even today, it's difficult now to see it because you got a black president. But prior to Obama, every time you saw a white president, especially at the White House, there was always blackies standing behind him. You just took for granted that they were Secret Service. I'll give you a hint of where I'm going with it. Those were days. D-E-Y. Ernest Morris. Yes, Steve. Yes.
You say what, Ron? D-E-what?
They were days. D-E-Y. They were more. Yes. And the European can't do anything unless he gets permission to do it, because it's not his country. And the game is set up to make you think the Europeans in power. And actually, the Danes are telling them what to do. They got a community in upper New York called Winchester County. They say they got black folks up there so rich, you better not take your poor butt in the area. They don't shoot and kill you, they'll put you in jail. They have permission to carry guns. The whole state of New York, don't quote me on this, but they tell me it's something like Washington, D.C. You're not allowed to own a gun. Ain't none of that CCW and all that crap. But when you go into Winchester County, they got guns and everything, and that's permission to carry. To keep your black booty out of there. It's deep. See? So, when you take this information and flip it back in history, you can now see why and how we're in the predicament today. But number one, they never taught it to you the way I'm describing it. That's number one. Number two, the Negroes that they put before you were mostly, that we don't even have to call them Uncle Tom. They were mostly individuals like Samuel L. Jackson in the Django. And you need to look at that movie one more time to really see that Samuel Jackson owned that plantation.
That's why he had so much control.
Yes. But they have to play the game, Beth. See, they got Negroes that are exposed out here, and let's call them Jesse Jackson, Al Sharpton. I read where, and this really shocked me, that Deion Sanders changed his name. I can't give it all to you, but he's a Day with a D-E-Y on the back of his name. Day. You can look that up. First name, Morris' name is Biggers. Biggers. Biggers, L something, Day. Now, don't ask me. I'm not trying to push him into anything, but you don't hear much about him other than sports. But I know he's having some major problems with his wife or ex-wife, so I don't know nothing about that, but I'll just leave that low. But I do know, and I read a couple articles they were talking about, and I saw him change his name, and he's a Day, D-E-Y. Now, when you look at it and realize that with all the blackies that were out there that were not Moors, true Moors, and it's difficult to live as a true Moor because there are principles and rules and regulations that you have to abide by. I don't know if I can live all of those rules, and I don't know. I haven't joined any group that is a Moorish group, but they have their culture, so you have to be a part of that. But see, I'm looking at it from a different perspective, and as I study more and speak to these heavyweights that I talk to, I see where there's room to tell the truth that most of our so-called heavyweights out there, and we don't need to call any name. You can take it any way you want it. You need to call me a heavyweight. We lie a lot. We mislead a lot. We do things for money. I heard one brother say it was a cardinal sin to charge anybody for nationality. And I had to buy mine. And I don't know what I can do with it. I mean, way back when I started, I probably spent close to $5,000 on a BS that I never needed, but I didn't know. Meaning, I paid my dues. I didn't know. I thought it was going to move me here and move me there. Even your UCC. Most of everything you've learned as a Moor is incorrect. I won't call it a damn lie, but I'll call it incorrect. And I'm not blaming those that taught it because they only could teach what they knew. But the problem with what they know is not working. So you need to challenge when somebody tells you that they have something that you need to ask a simple question. Where can I go look at it where it's working? Don't tell me I need a nationality and you're going to charge me X number of dollars, and then when I get it, I'm still the same. It didn't do anything for it. What am I going to do with it when I get it? How is it going to advance my life with buying a nationality? Nobody buys a nationality. You're born with it. All you need to do is discover it. I really learned that from Bobby F. Bobby never filed, to my knowledge, paperwork determining who he is and all of that stuff because he had enough in his mind, in his head, to stand up for what he was. That's what I've always pushed for. I want to know, K-N-O-W. I don't want you to give me some paperwork and I'm going to flash you. And that's supposed to make somebody back up. I ain't never seen that happen. I'm not saying it don't. I just ain't never seen it. That can make a person back up. He do it with his mind and his mouth. He do it with words. But where did he learn that? I got several DVDs by that queen of Victoria. She's so heavy in court that when the judge see her, puts his court down and take a week so he's up to trouble. Well, she goes in with knowledge of law, all law. She goes in running her piece. She sent a visitation, let them know she was coming, but the judge is going to try you when you go in there to see what you know. Anybody sends the paperwork. And I want everybody out there to hear you. Are you there, Ben?
I'm here.
Oh,
Kevin. Now, with the movie Django.
Yep. It's coming back.
And
go ahead and ask.
So that's mainly showing us about the contract.
Yes.
Or is it showing
that's
us
number one.
Okay.
That's number one. Okay. But number two, they're showing you the day. Samuel Jackson was a day. Samuel Jackson owned all of that. The ladies, told how he handled himself in the kitchen, patting them in there all of them.
So that's why he was able to sit there and cross his legs.
Cross his legs in his den, drank that whiskey. He was on another level than a quote unquote Uncle Tom, quote unquote house Negro that they taught us. He was I say that he represented all of these Jack Lake preachers, stuff like that. But I'll take that a little further. And I'll say that he was above those preachers. Because most of the days like him are hidden. If it wasn't for Django coming, we would have never been able to see a Samuel Jackson. And it's probably why the big wigs like our black movie producers, some of them, they were upset that that movie was made, and they blamed it on Ferrantino that he don't need to be doing a black movie anymore, that type of stuff. You know? And I never could get to the bottom of it, because when I looked at it, I told you, first thing come to my mind, this is a good movie.
Right.
But what the hell are they complaining about? And you recall when it came out, they were doing a lot of chin music on, so-called whitey. I've never seen him, but the so-called whitey Ferrantino to do a black movie. They didn't want him to do that. Then they started spreading the fact that they was using the word nigger too much. That type of thing. I thought it was a wonderful.
They must haven't been in the black neighborhood. That's all you hear is that word.
But take it to another level. They wanted to use that so that you would get angry and not see it. Because never did they know that it would get as much exposure. Where else have you ever seen a movie? There's only been one more movie that dealt with the UCC that I know of that was clear as a bell. That was Judy Garland's Wizard of Oz.
Okay.
Wizard of Oz took the UCC from the beginning and took it all the way to the end. And most people that looked at it had no idea what they were looking at. They looking at the dancing and the singing and the yellow brick road and all that crap. But if you go online and pull up Wizard of Oz and then put behind it political Wizard of Oz, they'll break down every frame of that movie and show you where the Tin Man was the IRS. I can't break it down the way they did. All of that was telling you that they were taking all your money away. You remember there was a storm in that Wizard of Oz, and they went into Kansas as K-A-N. When they came out, it was K-A. We're in another land, but it was in the same thing. When you went to school, Bear, I don't know your age, so I use myself. When I went to school, Illinois was I-L-L. When I come out of school years later, I was I-L. What happened? Who did that?
Is that when it turned to a corporation, or was it a corporation before that?
Yes. When they turned it into, that's when they filed bankruptcy in 1933. They have never had money. If you go back to 1871, try to think back, the war had just ended. There was no money, nothing. It took Abraham Lincoln to set up a program that would make everybody rich for the next 200 years. And I just saw that and learned that recently. Guess what he did? He set up fiber code. set up the libel code. And remember that there was no government while he passed it. He appointed his military to be governor of a particular state that was against him. He said that Lincoln was ruthless. He set up a governor and generals of his own army to go into states where they were undesirable, kick out the leaders of the state, and then they all voted to come back into union. Then they passed laws. Now we're going to talk about this law, but we're going to take an early break.
Okay.
Get back to the web.
All right. Yeah, because the sound will be better. The sound is not that good.
Okay.
So we'll go into a break, a 10-minute break, and we'll come back.
Okay. I bet. Thanks.
Okay. We are back. You there, Ron?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I am, Bev.
So, that was kind of an eye-opener when you said that Uncle Ramus in the movie Django was really not the house Negro that we thought he was, but he was the owner.
Yes. Yes. I would even venture to say, and I want to go back, I saw it today, but I missed the part. Remember when he put the skull on the table and he was explaining what his father had taught him about black people was this and that type of thing? Django was standing right behind him. Now, I was thinking that it was a possibility that DiCaprio was Samuel L. Jackson's grandson.
Ah, okay. He was one of those mulattoes.
Yes,
okay.
yes. What's your name's wife could have been either a white woman or what's your name, meaning Samuel Jackson, a white woman or a mulatto.
Mm-hmm.
You dig?
Right.
Which meant that he had the land, but he would act like she was the owner. I can see where whatever the mother was, the children has to be.
Mm-hmm.
So they have a law back in the day. It's still on the books, and it's a Latin word, but it's I can't pronounce it, but it's impersonal nata sada, something like that. I'll just throw that at you. And what it means is, if the mama was a slave, all of the offsprings will have to be slaves.
Okay.
No ifs, ands, buts about it. So let's say that you were a blackie, ugly blackie like Samuel Jackson, and he married a mulatto that was a black, but since he had land, she would be a perfect cover for him.
Mm.
You dig it?
Gotcha.
So he would treat her as a white woman, but then she was a mulatto, so the son was what's your name's daddy.
Mm-hmm.
See, because I look at my family, my grandmother was black as I am. My grandfather was high yellow. We call him Daddy Bob. Daddy Bob was a big mason, and he had a good job for a mason. He was a brick maker in this small town that I was raised in called Danville. And he got away with a lot of stuff. Because anytime Granny could tell me to get on a bicycle at 8, 9 years old, ride down to a tavern about 2 miles away and get her a couple of bottles of beer, knock on the side door, the peck would come to the door, stick the brown bag out, I'd get on the bike and ride back to the house. Nobody said a word, nothing. I did that often. And then when Daddy Bob got off work, he would come by the tavern and pay. I was never there, but I've seen him walk home with other guys from the brickyard,
Okay.
And then, now when we did our family tree, Daddy Bob's father was an Indian, and his mother was an Indian, and his father was a white boy that was in the in the family of Marsh, Marsh. Now, somewhere between Daddy Bob being the son and marrying the black grandma, the name got changed to March. I suspect that Marsh got some money in it.
Okay.
Do you kind of get where I'm going
right,
with that?
Right.
You did? And we never wanted for anything. I never saw Daddy Bob with any money, but he never worried about taxes. Why didn't he worry about taxes? If you think back as far as you can on your family, your grandmother, great-grandmother, they never worried about taxes. Why? Because they were living with the good book, that black Bible in the house. What does the Bible represent? Ecclesiastic corporation. And the good book said the First Amendment of the Constitution says, I don't have it in front of me, but I can pull it out. It says that the government would never hinder or get involved with anything that deals with religion. Do you know? Are you with me on this?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
They always says you have to separate religion and government, politics.
Church and state.
Okay.
Yep. The First Amendment says there's Fifth Amendment. I'm getting close, Bear. First Amendment. Here we go. Listen carefully. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press, or the right of the people peacefully to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. So, if that's true, then the next question would be, why do churches belong to the 501c3? If the First Amendment says you don't have to pay taxes, and every one of them preachers jump in there to be 501c3 in order not to pay taxes, do you kind of get what I'm saying, Bear?
But they're not supposed to be paying taxes anyway. They didn't need the 501c3.
Correct. However, here's where the trick is. 501c3 has a jurisdiction of rules, regulations to govern a preacher. And out of his ignorance, he'll join or sign up for 501c3, and then the government tells him, don't get involved with politics and don't address your congregation with any type of activity that would be adversary to the government. Now, you tell me.
But it's okay for the politicians to come into his church at election time.
Oh, you're right. But since we don't understand what I just said, that we don't need to even be concerned about the government, because the Fifth Amendment protects every church to be whatever it wants to be. Now, the only true church was Granny's house. I don't know, people don't see that. Granny never paid taxes because she lived by the book, and the book talks about the ecclesiastic corporation, and it states clearly that you don't have to pay to live. So nothing was put on Granny. But once they tricked us to get involved in their government, made us go to their schools, we began to take for granted that we were supposed to pay taxes. Supposed to sign up for a church in order for us not to pay taxes.
Well, I see why the preachers get to go to the 501c3, because they give them money. They get grants. So,
well, that was, we're going back to treaties. When they started, that was to lure you into 501c3.
Right.
But now we're going back to what I spoke a little bit on yesterday. We're going back to the three badges. We're going back to the creation of the preacher. We're going back to Johnson. Lyndon Johnson was a senator in 1954. He instituted the 501c3 in 1954, Beth. And he exercised it on the churches in 1956. And this is when Eisenhower, who was the president at the time, created this white Bible that I talk about, bring in the black Bible, and we will give you a brand new white Bible, 3 times the size of the black Bible. And it's going to be white leather with gold trim pages, red, you know the ropes, red ribbon marker.
I got one.
Don't say it too loud, Ben.
Oh.
don't say it too loud. Because when Granny gave up that black Bible to get, all right, let me ask you, where'd you get it from, Ben?
The funeral home.
Where'd you get it from?
Funeral home.
They get the funeral home gave it to you?
When I buried my grandmother, that's what they gave me.
Okay. What happened to Granny's Bible?
I don't know. And I remember she had that Bible with everybody's name in it. She had that black Bible. I don't know what happened to it.
Well, I would almost venture to say that the funeral director took it and burned it, and that's why they gave you that white one.
Mm.
Now, I don't know, but I'm just saying. Because, see, a lot of people were involved in the conspiracy and never knew they were in the conspiracy. This is why the Days had to set up this fictitious, hidden dynasty. All Days live good and all of them are super rich. But what would it look like if everybody knew about Winchester County up in New York, that black folks were super rich, and the whole community or county full of mulattoes and Moors?
Now, why did you say why the Days were so super rich?
Because they were originally involved in, I don't want to call it criminal activity, but they were the ones that dealt with the money, just like the Rothschilds. Where they get their money from? Okay. I would almost venture to say that the Rothschilds are Moors, because a lot of people look at, I think his name was Nathan. Rothschild had 6 or 7 sons, so the story goes. I have no idea. And he gave each son a continent. And they set up a money laundering scheme on every continent. And today, they own the earth. That's where all that comes from.
Okay.
And
they're the bankers.
They're the bankers, yes.
Okay.
And the one that was over North America, South America, Canada, and all this stuff over here, when you see a picture of him, he got big lips, he's a little fat, chubby-looking rascal. And you could almost say he was black. Or now that you know, he was definitely a mulatto.
Mm-hmm.
You dig it?
Okay.
So now here we go with Samuel Jackson. The people that work. Notice how Samuel Jackson treated the I don't even know what you call them. The slave drivers that were on the plantation was on the horses and had the whips and he was telling them what to do.
You're telling everybody what to do.
Yes, he was. He was telling everybody what to do.
Yeah.
Now, never did you know or even thought about the house Negro being that powerful. The only advantage a house Negro had was he ate good, he lived up in the big house, and he loved his white man.
Mm-hmm.
But now Samuel Jackson took it to a higher level, and especially when he was he could read and write. Now, where did that come from? How did he know how to sign them checks?
Mm-hmm.
And then he drank that good scotch. He was talking about it.
Right.
Then he's sitting there talking to the white boy. He's sitting down. You know what a nigga supposed to do when the whitey come in? You're supposed to stand up.
Yeah. And you're definitely not supposed to be writing their checks.
Oh, no way.
He was handling the money. Wow, that went right over my head. I bet you it went over a lot of people's head. I didn't even see that. I didn't connect it.
It went over my head, Beth. I don't know everything. I just picked up on that contract, Uniform Commercial Code. I just picked up on that.
Right. I
was looking right at that. But I was so busy looking at it, I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I didn't even think about Samuel Jackson. Because I called him, I said to you that he represented every Jack Lake preacher that I ever met.
Right.
And that ain't even true now that I'm looking at it, because he was way better at his game than a regular preacher.
Mm-hmm.
This man was educated. He had a mind. He knew how to run that plantation. And he was punishing slaves.
Mm-hmm.
See, you would think from Malcolm X, if they caught one of them house Negroes out in the field, they would kill him.
Right.
You would think. This cat went everywhere and anywhere he wanted to go and punished the slaves. He's the one put, what they call him, Hell Milder, Carrie Washington. He's the one that put her in that box.
Mm-hmm.
So he gonna punish her. Whoa.
Mm-hmm.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. Wow.
So these are the things why I say that we are looking at a whole different ball game when truth starts coming out, and you have to challenge what you've been taught. And everything I look at of what I've been taught is backwards. The European knew nothing when he came here. He's the one that come in as a vagabond. He came in as a criminal. They couldn't do anything with him. And they were sent to set up plantations down in the United States. They were called, the 13 colonies was the first United States. I'm telling you, it's deep.
Yes, it is. And like we said in one of the other shows, the United States is different from the United States of America.
Yes, it is.
Two different entities.
Yes, it is. And the reason that is different, because as you said, the Pope says America. He talks about America.
He said he coming to America, yeah.
Yes, because it would be like him saying, I'm coming to General Motors, and you don't want to say that if you're the Pope. Mm-hmm. You want to come to see the people, and the people are in America. And then the word America comes from an Arabic word, Aramesh. I can't pronounce it well, but I'm going to get it and spell it out, and we'll talk about it in a future show, where they took the word and flipped the script, and because they couldn't speak the language that we spoke.
Right.
Then even as early as today is even going on in places in Texas, you're not allowed to speak your foreign language in public. When I was in the military, there were a lot of Mexicans in the Army. And when I went down to Fort Houston and Fort El Paso, Texas, they were told by the sergeants and everybody, stop speaking that. You can't speak that in the military. You had to speak English. I witnessed that. Now, you may have read about that where you've seen it or heard it, or you might have heard of it. But they didn't want you to speak your language. Mm-hmm. You did? Right. And even today, they speak that those languages like Arabic and all that. They speak that at home, and they know to maintain it, but they don't like to speak it much in public unless they're talking to each other.
Right.
You know, you dig? So it's like I say, once you start getting your head starts opening up, you're going to begin to see some things that you just can't really believe, and you only not believe it because you learned and believed something else for so long. That's the part that really gets to you. But you can't challenge yourself because you did not know. Mm-hmm. You didn't know. You did. So let's get back, because we got a lot of niggas out there now. I know you don't like to hear that word. It kind of stings in your ear. But we have to use it in order to differentiate between those that want to be right or free and those that don't want to be free. Or better yet, those that think they're free and are holding everybody else back. And then the days with all the money is to their advantage for this type of hypocrisy to go on. Because look at Samuel. He lived good as long as he could keep it going. Am I right?
Yeah.
You saw it. He had his women. He had his alcohol. He had his money.
Yeah, and I'm like you. I could see that being his son.
Yes. It explains more of the movie when you throw it in there.
Yeah.
You dig? You know, because he was really telling him what to do. Now, a couple of times, the son chastised him, especially when they was arguing about that horse. But I took that as telling Samuel Jackson, if you keep talking like that, somebody going to realize that you're my daddy. On? Or, yes, what's really going on. Yeah. And once he gained himself, he switched quickly. He switched and got back where he's supposed to be. And kept talking back. That's another thing. He never did stop running his mouth. As he walked in the house, he said, damn nigga on the horse, I don't know what this plantation's coming to. Yeah. Unbelievable, man. Yeah. Unbelievable. But we have so much more to learn. And power is in learning. To know KNOW is so powerful that you set up a zone around yourself, Bev, and that zone will keep the enemy away because he cannot function in there. Now, we have a problem, and I'm going to say you and I when I say we, because we are experiencing and listening to a lot of so-called heavyweights. Yeah. And it's becoming clear to me that those heavyweights have a private agenda. I'm not challenging anyone. I'm not calling anybody's names, because not only do the heavyweights have agendas, most organizations out there, and we know their agendas, such as NAACP, such as these fraternal orders, they're not in our best interest. Right. Especially when they swear to uphold the Constitution of the United States. You got to ask the question, which Constitution? You did? And since you and I have never seen the original, but we know it's of us because we can feel truth. I can feel truth. I know when something ain't right. And I don't think anybody would write a contract that looks like me and put something in there that's going to destroy me. And the reason I'm saying it that way, because when you look into these different acts, ACT, that are being perpetrated on us, especially from the government, you're going to find that the government has circumvented the law so much that he's actually created his own law. That's where that word comes from, color of law. They create that trash. My next project, and you can start on it with me, Bev, my next project is to read and study the Michigan Constitution. Yeah. Everybody out there, your listening audience and mine is building. We are all over United States. I know you are much more than myself. But we all across America. And everybody comes from different states. Yeah. I'm telling you that each state has a constitution. And that constitution has been so circumvented that it really puts us in slavery today from a constitution that we wrote. Now, let me explain that. When you look at most constitutions, I always looked at the Michigan Constitution, and it would say that it was revised or repealed in 1963. I don't know why that year sticks with me, but it always will say that. So now I'm asking, if it was repealed in 63, what the hell am I reading now? You dig? Now, if you look and put in, I don't know how I did it, but if I put in 1963, I will get that revised version. But when I put in there, the brother told me to put in 1909. And I put in 1909, it came up. And he asked me, did any others come up? And I said, no. He said, tap it again. Bev, I tapped it a second time, and 3 other constitutions came up. He said, pick 1850. And he said, you know why I said 1850? I said, no. He said, because we were in charge of everything in 1850. And if there was any flaws in the constitution of the states that had been overlooked because the European was circumventing the Constitution in words so much, they corrected it in 1850. Now, that's very important because that's before the Civil Wars and before Reconstruction and before the European took over.
Okay.
When he took me back to that, we went into a section of Michigan's Constitution that literally said foreclosures are illegal.
Oh, my God. Oh,
yes. Remember when I told you about the Economic Act, Currency Act of 1864, and it said that you could only use property for 5 years,
right?
And you definitely couldn't use it as collateral or something like that. Well, the article the article that I read in the Michigan Constitution said that and more. So what they really did, they just revised it and kept coming forward with it, kept a little bit of it in each revision, and pretty soon you'll forget 1850. You cannot change a constitution. It's a law. How are you going to change the Constitution?
So
1850
is when the Michigan Constitution came into effect?
No. There were several constitutions prior to 1850.
Okay. Why are we looking at 1850?
Well, 1850s specifically clearly talked about foreclosures.
Okay.
And it also talked about something else that we talked about when I was with, we were on, where was we? I don't know where, but the brother called in and told us where to go in the Constitution because I got mixed up. He told me to go to Article 1, Section 19. I remember him telling me that, but I can't remember what it was about. But it clearly defined what you and I were talking about, and I can't remember what it was. That's why I'm telling you I got to go back and read that. I want to memorize that daggum Constitution.
And everybody listening need to read their Constitution
their own state.
in their state. Yeah.
Yes, they do. And they need to read it slow and break it down and understand each section. Because the Michigan Constitution is broken down into specific sections, such as military, that type of thing. And you need to go in there and look and read, and you're going to be shocked. Now, once you find what you want, you got to know how to present it. Because the first thing they're going to do, which they did in 1938. They passed a law in 1938 that no lawyer can represent any case law that was written prior to 1934.
I guess not.
You're right. But remember, that's only for 14th Amendment citizens.
Mm-hmm.
See, everything that's written in those constitutions are for real citizens, or, if you will, Moors. But once they start changing it and coming up with all these statutes, now there's another one. Before a law can become a statute, or not a law, let's say a proclamation, because you'll announce it, and then they announce it, vote on it, and then they say it's law. But before they can do that, the Constitution specifically states in Michigan that it has to be read 3 times in each house. Separately. These crooks will pass 5 and 10 laws at one time on Friday, and your butt will go to jail on Monday for violating the law.
Yeah.
And then they'll go further and say that you cannot even put the law on the books unless it's after 90 days after your session is over. And every session has a cutoff period. So don't get me to tell you what it is, but there's a cutoff period. So your section is always 2 years because you were elected for 2 years. So if you went in there on the first month of your election and voted a law in, you got 2 years and 90 days before that law can go into effect by the Constitution.
So when these states, just like our state, Michigan, for example, they had that unlawful emergency manager, and now they're putting another one in dealing with the school system. And so it's no sense in marching in the streets. You got to know the Constitution. That's the only way you're able to challenge them if someone wanted to challenge them.
Totally correct. Totally correct. And you definitely don't want to... Go ahead.
And so the Constitution, the revised state Constitution, is really set up like the color of law.
Yes. They get more colorful as time progresses.
Go. Okay, got it.
Yes, as they go along.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. Because when I investigated the emergency manager, I just happened to hear a white talk show, and they were interviewing some congressman, Republican, way up north, and they were talking about whatever. And then this local white talk show host asked him, what are you going to do about the lawsuits about the emergency manager because you didn't follow the Constitution? His answer was, the judges have already ruled that it was a past practice. Listen to this answer. It was a past practice because the Democrats did it for 40 years and nobody complained. They said the Democrats always, like when Coleman Young was in office up there, they always passed laws on Friday and they went into effect on Monday. But now when you read the revised Constitution, it says that can happen only if you get 2/3 majority of each house to vote for it. So and they've never had a clear. They never had a clear 2/3 majority for the last 100 years up in Lansing. No, it's either 50-50, that's not good, or it might be 60-40. You dig? 60% of Democrats, when Coleman was there, that ruled over the Republicans, but they didn't have enough to do a 2/3. You need 75% to do 2/3. But he said, since they just took 60% and went on and did it, and we didn't say nothing, then we're going to do the same thing. And I'm saying to myself, none of that has anything to do with me. And when I went back and told the people who said they were concerned and who said they was marching and said they was preachers and all that, we shall overcome, BS. They just looked at me like, well, yeah, we're gonna give it to our lawyers and see what they say. Well, I knew they wouldn't go any further if you're gonna bring the lawyers in. You see what I'm saying? Right. And then they'll say to you that you can't go in their courts and practice law. You're right. But you could go in their court and use their law, and if they break their own law, like we're talking right now, then you're not practicing law. You're just showing them where they done screwed up. But they know so many tricks and so many fly-by-night malarkey. You know, you got to be careful. But take it to federal court, and then you can go create what they call Article 3 court, and you can definitely get your point across, or at least tie them up. Right. You did? So now, let me go back to these days and these daggum, where we at on times. Now, when Lincoln, being the so-called crusader and love of black people, he never passed a law that protected black folks. Never did. And history shows he used the word slaves, and slaves did not denote black people. Laborers would be more clear for denoting black folks because they had bad contracts. They didn't even consider them because they were property of the United States, which is very important. So when the war was over, the government passed laws that you could not be a vagabond without going to court. I mean, without going to jail. Think about that. So Lincoln never fought if you think the terrorists are bad, Lincoln was the terrorist among terrorists. not only did he fight on the battlefields, he went into towns and burned towns down. Everybody was not involved in the war. He didn't care. When he went south, he told the generals, burn everything, kill the sheep, kill the livestock, burn the barns, all of that kind of stuff. Now, when the war was over, you had hundreds, thousands of people that didn't have a job. So he passed a law that vagabonds were illegal. They called them other things, but I'll use the word vagabond. If you didn't have a job, you had to go on a work camp owned by the government. And then the government began to lend the vagabonds, like they do right now, lend them out to clean the highways and all of that. And now you got people who were the overseers that cared nothing about you. An overseer don't give a damn about you. But a slave master will care because you're his property.
Right.
So life as a vagabond during the Civil War era, coming up into Reconstruction, coming forward to 1900, was nothing but death. And they took children and put them in the camp. I just got a book on Abraham Lincoln. They called him the filthy president. There was nothing he wouldn't do to destroy black people. He hated black folks, or he loved white supremacy.
Wasn't he a mulatto?
Yes, he was a mulatto. Yeah, he was a mulatto. But his political base was predominantly Europeans. And those Europeans had mulatto children who were being snatched by the, what that law I told you, a Fugitive Act. See, when he started talking, he was going to free the slaves. People started running in the South. He was going to free them in the Confederate States. The slaves started running off the plantation, running north. So it became a problem. Some of those slaves, a majority of those slaves, were white folks. So what happened when they got up north, the Europeans up north, who was a political base, the Republican political base, keep that in mind, they would send their children to store to get some chicken or get a loaf of bread, and they never came back. Why? Because the slave runners from the South would snatch them in the Fugitive Act because they looked like niggas, or they had big lips, or they had broad nose. Remember, they couldn't really tell because they didn't have DNA, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
We know what they would do if it was a 50-50 or a 60-40 and 60% was black. You know you're going to be black or dark brown and boom, 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 and nappy hair. But if it was the other way around, where it was a real light-skinned mulatto that had a baby by a European, what you going to call that baby? Maybe one or two might come out white, but maybe that third one might come out with big lips, broad nose. So they petitioned Lincoln. If you're going in the White House, you're going to do something about this mess. So that's when everything he did was to protect his political base. And all you got to do is think about that. Just like that punk down in Ferguson, Missouri, that prosecutor. Everything he did protected his political base. Just like what happened in New York, killing that big heavyweight. That prosecutor with that grand jury, he had to protect his political base.
Right.
He won't have a job. And then they could take it further with the secret orders and take his P card away from him. People don't look at that.
Well, you see because of what the mayor said, that the police in New York turned their back on him every time he go to a meeting or a function.
Yep.
So
but dig this.
No support. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but dig this.
Mm-hmm.
They did it in Detroit and I'm sure they're doing it in New York. You don't have to live in New York to be a police officer. Mm-hmm. I guarantee you that over 50% of all those police officers live in the suburbs, just like downtown Detroit. Right. So what the hell they care about that mayor? You dig it?
Mm-hmm.
That makes a difference. They never would have switched that if Coleman had been alive. They never would have. And it took Dennis Archer, that turncoat nigger named Dennis Archer, to set up for the politicians to change the home rule and let that you didn't have to live in Detroit to work in Detroit as a city. And that's when the economy started failing. That's when crime began to rise. Because you used to have a police officer that lived across the street and your block was kind of quiet. And when they all moved out, there you go.
Well, that was all done by design. You can see how it is there. It's like a domino effect.
I'm telling you. So if it was done by design, which I'm agreeing with, think about 1875, when people were not as hip as they are today.
Right.
Most of them wasn't even concerned about the European. A lot of them probably never saw a European. I didn't see none until I went to school. You know, they lived in their neighborhood, I lived in mine. We didn't play with them, that kind of stuff. They out with them pigs. You see what I'm saying? So we never looked at it like that. We looking at it from what they're teaching us in them damn books that come out of Texas. White racism, white supremacy is the only thing that holds the United States of America, Inc. together.
Right.
If you eliminate racism, the whole government will fall.
Well, the government is. I mean, to eliminate that, you eliminating the government, the corporation.
Yes. You certainly are. Because it was founded on that.
Right.
And it's what I'm explaining to you about mulattoes. They had to set it up like that in order to build, because they had to let people in or let people out. That's why that racism came involved, all whites. That's what that was all about. They were teaching the European how to be a racist, and your community would be better off if you keep that nigga out. And then, once the government passed laws like the vagabond laws, and there were several others that hindered our way of life, the municipal communities begin to pass laws and city ordinances. That's where Jim Crow and black codes started becoming into effect, right after the Civil War.
Mm-hmm.
And we cannot imagine the devastation that was put on black folks. Even when you traveled, I recall we had to take a bottle in the car if you had to go, take the bottle. Do number one in the bottle, because you couldn't stop in certain areas, especially at night. You dig? Nobody lived like that but us. How the hell the European going to try to say that, you ought to be able to pull yourself up with your bootstraps? When I was born in that crap, my age, I was born in that crap. You think I'm going to forget it? My life was molded from that crap. And I'm supposed to fall in love with that Peckerwood today, and I know who he is and what he's done. Oh, he ain't the same. That's like
But at least you have the knowledge now, and so you're not a citizen. That's the whole key. Their whole thing is a corporation. Their whole thing, their bottom line is money. And so they need as many citizens as they can get. So the thing is to come out of that corporation. It should be interesting with this new Congress that we have. It's 80% white, 80% men, and 92% Christian. That should be very interesting.
Of what interest? What should I be looking for? And I'm challenging you because you said.
Well, I'm just saying that we're looking at this corporation, and so they had got rid of most of the few women that they had in Congress. Most of it.
Don't forget, women have babies. Men don't. Women want to make decisions that will help the children because they are the mothers. So a woman is against racism, basically against racism and white supremacy.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm trying to figure out why would it be interesting when it's not only going to be the same old crap, it may be worse. Not maybe.
That's what I'm saying. It's going to get worse. Because now the white supremacy is really in order.
When you said interesting.
Well, yeah, it's more interesting when I'm saying that, because now that I'm understanding things, I see the picture here. And I'm looking at the numbers here, and I'm seeing the core of the corporation, which is white supremacy. The numbers, you can see it.
Yes.
And the people that's there is going to make sure that it stays in place. I mean, they got to, or the corporation can't survive.
Yes. But now, as sure as Congress plans, as you're saying that by design, so does the Creator.
Oh, yeah.
You dig it? So he done laid out what's coming down the pike. The Congress is only trying to slow it down or manipulate it. And they got to have the days, I'm going to go back to that. They got to have the days in order to tell them what to do. Because if the days step back, Bev, you're going to see a devastating fall of United States of America. Because the government is doing better for the days than they are for the Europeans. The days live better than the Europeans. Because they don't have to be on Front Street every day with all the bull crap, lying and wrestling in Congress and all of that crazy stuff. They don't have to even worry about that. And most people never even thought about Winchester County. I knew about it damn near 25, 30 years ago, but I never thought and never could put it in place the way I'm putting it in place today. I didn't think it was possible. But then everybody would always say to me, who do you think those niggas are that stand behind Eisenhower, Kennedy, Bush, all of those? They had blackies. Always. When they get on the news, press conferences and stuff like that, there were always blackies standing behind them. Who were them blackies?
Probably today.
Yes, that's what I'm looking at today. You're right. I used to say, well, they must be Secret Service or they must be marshals or something like that. But now I'm getting another view of that.
And this also is why I'm saying it's interesting, too, because now the cover is off of them. Now we recognizing who those people are today. Slow your roll, Beth. Okay.
You are don't get too happy. You are recognizing them. You dig it? 99% of us are not. We're still looking at Django as being a nigger movie, using the word nigger. They didn't even pick up on UCC because most of us never knew what a UCC was about. Most of us don't care what it's about. No, I got to go to work tomorrow. Or I got to go see this babe. She gets her check tomorrow. I got to get a couple of dollars. That type of thing. See, we can't leap out there and think because we are waking up that they are waking up. The niggas always gonna be out there, and that's what the European.
But see, I'm not really looking at the citizens, which is the niggers, the Negroes. I'm looking at that there's a lot of people that are waking up.
And I can agree. I'll agree with you. I agree. But now you got to be careful because we already talked about the heavyweights have their own agendas.
Mm-hmm.
See, it don't take much to create another Samuel L. Jackson. They're being created every day, and they don't have to be days, but they will act like days. Because see, we don't know who we are. I don't know who I am. And now that I've been told that the word more is not who I am, I got to do some more research. So who am I? You dig it? What can I be called? I don't really know. And the United Nations don't know. That's why they said that you can be the oldest indigenous people on earth. Well, what does that mean? You know, we got some mulattoes in the Ouachita Nation. You follow me?
Right.
So what does that really mean? And we are the oldest nation in the world. You know? And then who is a Ouachita? How do you become Ouachita? That's another question. So there's a lot of things that need to be answered. And it will be answered in time. And it's not for us to force it. All we can do is live and study and stay on the righteous path. That's the main thing. Stay on the righteous path. Because certain things are going to happen for you as long as you're on that righteous path. And I love staying on it. That's why I act the way I act. I say, why would I want to change? Now, Ron, you just crazy as Looney Tune. Good. That's where I want to be. Why would I want to change now? I've been successful at 73, and now what am I supposed to change to? Samuel L. Jackson. What am I supposed to change to? Jack leg ass preacher? What am I supposed to change to? If I can't be myself, I don't want to be nothing. You know what I mean?
Right.
Okay. Do you have any questions out there? We're getting close to the top.
Right. Now, they listening. If you want to ask Ron a question, you can call 347-215-8041. You can raise your hands and ask the question before we get off the air. So, you know, to me, what you talked about today was Samuel L. Jackson. That was enlightening, but the days too. How they are associated with the money. And so, and what is you saying about the Moor? So if you, what are they saying? The Moor is not a nationality. You got to.
That's what's beginning to unravel.
Okay. Because
we don't know what a Moor is. We don't know where moorland is. I don't know where moorland is. Like Negro land. There's no such place.
Right.
You know, so we know Chinese got China. We can, do that. So that's why we're looking at this new. There's a couple of treaties out there that explain it, and I haven't read the treaties, but one of them is the Treaty of Tripoli, is one, and then there's a couple more. They say there's 3 treaties that make up the so-called a peace and friendship, and they actually not label, but actually designate our nationality in there.
Okay.
Now, it's important. You don't really have to live by that, but since we are in bondage, see, keep that in mind. We are the gold mine of the earth, because other people of color live in lands that are nowhere near as rich as the United States. So we got to take it that we are in the bosom of the devil, and that devil is white and black. We're learning that. But in that bosom of the devil, we in the richest nation on earth. And we make it that because we live in the bosom. Europeans don't have shit. They take it from us. And the days take it from the Europeans. Now, think about that. And we're only talking about 10% of population being Europe. Well, a little bit much more than that when you talk about it. Well, no, I'm not going to say that. 10% Europeans and days. And probably 60% are mulattoes that are passing for Europeans.
Right.
See, we got to look at that. Now, how you going to deal with it? I'm learning. There's got to be a way. And I think right now I'm using the principles. So if a European comes to me with some knowledge, wisdom, and sense, I'm going to listen. And I'm going to deal with it. I ain't mad at it. But if I come 50%, he got to come 50%. I don't know why we have to always do 80 to his 20. And if you know any Europeans, you always have to lean forward to be a friend. Think about that. And anybody that work with one know what I'm talking about. That shouldn't be. You know what I mean?
Right.
So we're going to work on it. And as long as I'm studying, As long as you out there, babe, you done start studying at least.
Yeah.
Awaken. And you waking up.
Yeah. And there's other people, and I understand. I mean, we all evolving. And like you say, this is the age of Aquarius, and so the timing is perfect.
Yes.
And we also have to really get into our spirituality too. I'm not talking about religion, but to help us find the truth.
Yes. And let's keep Granny. Let's do some more studying and thinking about Granny and our ancestors.
Yes.
They survived. Our ancestors survived. Do you realize they was killing us on sight, shooting?
Well, they're still doing it today. They're still doing it today.
But we're still here, Beth.
Yeah.
You're right. You know, and I don't want death to come to nobody, but they're killing us every day. I totally agree with you. You know, but we're still here. They got drugs in our communities. They got cigarettes. They got bad food. They got alcohol. You name it, prostitution, everything that make you a bad person not to make it is in our community. Liquor stores on every other corner, gas stations all over the place, all that kind of stuff. And we're still living.
Right.
We gotta be on a mission. And all niggas don't have to stay niggas. They can wake up tomorrow. And this is what they're afraid of. That's why they come up with all these programs and projects to mislead. You dig? They come out with them every day. Now they're talking about, I just saw a headline that Obama's going to propose free community college. Think about that. Think about that for a minute. And you got blacks running around right now with bachelor degrees and master degrees, either throwing mail or working at some, working out of their, you know what I'm trying to say, out of their contract. You know, and yet you're going to put everybody in school. Okay, that's good. But what you going to do when you graduate?
Well, the school is the only purpose of the school is to keep them citizens so they can keep working for the corporation.
There you go.
The school is not going to get them out of the corporation.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
So I can see him giving them free schooling. I could see that.
I saw that. I didn't read the whole article, but I saw it. You're right. Totally correct. And he can brainwash us as they get us in those schools. And we can, and then they can use benefit and privileges to control.
That's how
some people may want. That's right. That's right. He sure did. So bottom line, Bev, you know, we're in a hocus pocus trick bag, and we got to work with it in order to get out of it. And I'm putting all my knowledge is in the hands of my Creator, and I'm gonna keep pushing forward every day.
Yeah, we got to.
And as we can materialize, or as we can benefit ourselves and educate ourselves, I will bring it forward and deal with it.
All
you know what I mean?
Yeah, you're Minister of Communication.
Education. Yes, communication.
Both of them.
Yes, I got a caller, Bev. Caller on 314-761. Are you there with a question or comment?
Got a question. I got a comment. Just to add on to the show.
All right.
It's like I'm in Chicago. Right now. And like today, I passed up at the old temple that Nova Drury used to be at, and I found out that they don't have the title to the place.
Oh.
And see, this is what I'm saying about a lot of brothers and Moors, and I'm not trying to throw nobody on the bus, but we have to be real about all this. And one of the reasons why we don't know what Moor in the origin is because we're not speaking in the origin language, like Latin. So in the contract, they changed it into the English form or the commercial English form, so we won't know the roots of the words that we speak it in the Latin form. Check that out. See, they are ahead of us in a lot of different degrees on specific subject matters that we have to amalgamate together in one whole.
There you go.
When you step in front of anybody in front of any nation, you're supposed to speak your tongue if you claim that nation. Check that out.
Yes.
If you're Chinese, you're supposed to speak Chinese.
Yep.
If you're Moorish, what do you speak? If you're Moor, what do you speak? You should speak Moorish language or tops. You see what I'm saying? These are the gaps that keeps us away from the truth, and other brothers penny pinch off of it and people not giving you the fullness of it. There's a brother named Uriel Bey. He passed away some years ago, but he dropped some exclusive information concerning the Moors. And it's favored in a way, but it's not exactly how the Moors are preaching it out here. He talks about the talismanic readings that the ancient scriptures on the wall and the hieroglyphics and some of them that they've been finding are actual allodial titles. Check that out.
Wow.
They're actually the things that they have in the museums, the writings, all the artifacts that they find are giving information that they are contracts, ancient contracts.
Ancient contracts. Right on, brother. Right on. I hear you.
We're doing contracts now. They had contracts then. Remember, contracting energy. It always had to be duality, polarity.
Yes. All right, brother. I'm going to start looking for you a little earlier because the music is coming. We got to get it out. But I really appreciate it.
So, Ron.
Yes. Yes.
Write his number down.
I got it.
Okay.
Yes.
Right. Okay, well, until next week, Ron, we shall continue this education.
All right. And I appreciate it, Bev, because we're moving together. You're learning, and I'm learning with you. All right?
All right. I'm going to be reading my
week.
Michigan Constitution.
Okay. Call me if you get something hot. We'll get on it together.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
Talk.